I do believe that if we can get out there and create a transparent ecosystem, and by ecosystem, I mean having both your investors and your issuers all using it, that could be very beneficial to the real players in the sector and then to new money as well.
Otis Gold Corp is a gold development and exploration company with quality projects in the pro-mining state of Idaho. Otis's flagship Kilgore project has a resource of 961,000 gold ounces, and its recently published preliminary economic assessment demonstrated an impressive post-tax IRR of 53% at $1,500 gold. In addition to the significant expansion potential at Kilgore, Otis is exploring its highly prospective Oakley project. This Carlin-type gold deposit already has an inferred resource, and previous near-surface drilling intersected 123 meters of 0.69 grams per ton gold. Otis Gold Corp trades in New York under the ticker OGLDF and in Toronto under the ticker OOO. That's triple O. To learn more, go to otisgold.com. That's otisgold.com. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Mining Stock Education. I am your host, Bill Powers. I appreciate you tuning in. If you'd like to engage the show, you can always reach me at bill@MiningStockEducation.com. Well, today's episode and focus flows out of my experience at Beaver Creek about a month and a half ago. For those of you that listen to every episode, you know that I was at Beaver Creek, and that is a conference where you go and you meet one-on-one with various management teams, and for about 25 to 30 minutes, those meetings last, and the management team walks you through their presentation. I sat down for about 30 of these, and by far when I was there, the most persuasive and memorable presentations, just from a presentation standpoint, not talking about the character of the management or the viability of the projects, but just from a presentation standpoint, the most persuasive and best ones were those that incorporated this newer technology called VRIFY technology, to where I would sit down and the CEO wouldn't hand me a paper PowerPoint, but would hand me an iPad, and as they click through their iPad and circle things in real time, that would show up on my iPad, and they toured me both topographically for me to see the projects, as well as going underneath the earth and showing me the 3D models, and I could ask questions. Why did you drill here and not drill over there? And they'd be able to turn the 3D model and address that. So it was very impactful, and again, it was a step above just the standard PowerPoint on paper presentation. So as a result of that, I reached out to VRIFY, and I reached out to Steve DeYoung. He is the CEO and co-founder of VRIFY. If you follow the junior mining sector, you know that Steve has experienced great success, even in his 20s in this sector, where he was the CEO and president of Integra Gold Corp. Before that company was successfully sold to Eldorado Gold. Steve's currently the chairman of Integra Resources and also serves on the board of other junior mining companies. Steve, welcome to Mining Stock Education. I appreciate you joining me, and perhaps for those listeners that aren't familiar with your story, you could share a little bit about your experience with Integra Gold and how that helped inform and even produce the company VRIFY that you're leading now.
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me. So my background, as you mentioned, is more in the actual on the corporate side of the mining industry, in the junior mining industry. So I became the CEO of a really small junior company, an explorer in Quebec, when I was about 28 years old. It was a $10 million company called Integra Gold. And this was in 2012. And little did I know that the price of gold had just peaked, and we were sort of setting in for the nuclear winter of the precious metal market. Over the next 5 years, we've grown Integra Gold, built our team from one person in Quebec to ultimately just under 100. And then our business was acquired in 2017, as you mentioned, by Eldorado Gold, and that was a $600 million acquisition. So shareholders did well by it. It was a bit of an outlier in what, as I'm sure all of your listeners are well aware of, it's been a really tough time in the space. And we had a lot of exploration success, and I give full credit to our exploration team for kind of discovering the ore body that they did. That I was actually at the mine opening about 3 months ago, and it's now employs 400 people and is producing 130 to 170,000 ounces a year, which equates to between $200 and $300 million a year in Canadian revenue. But when we look back at that story, a lot of our success was just built on sort of this culture that we built around embracing technology. And we did things like we did $1 million crowdsourcing challenge, where we took a data set that we had acquired through an acquisition and put it out to the world and said, anyone out there who is good with data, be a geoscientist or a computer scientist or a data scientist or a machine learning expert, whatever it may be, take a look at this data and tell us where we should look for more gold. We co-hosted or we founded an event called Disrupt Mining with Gold Corp, which was a call out to anyone with disruptive technologies that could be applied to the mining sector. And in the late days of Integra Gold, we created a virtual tour of our site. And we're a few iterations past that now at VRIFY, but simplistically, we would charter planes and bring people up to our site in Quebec, and we are an hour flight from Toronto, so we could do quite simple site tours, and our project was 2 kilometers away from the airport. But we looked at this and said, why are we spending 25 to 50 grand each time to bring 10 or 15 analysts and investors out here? There's got to be a better way for us to open up our site to the whole world, because we're really proud of all the work that we did. So we created a virtual tour, and really simplistically, it's using 360-degree photography from drone shots to inside buildings to underground, and linking those together where you can jump from one to the next and understand the site. And what we found, and this is the late days of Integra Gold, as we're going through this, spending kind of 2-3 weeks a month on the road meeting investors, and then going through a very competitive sales process and meeting with potential buyers of our company. We found that we'd spend 70-80% of our time in meetings with an iPad going through this virtual tour of our site, and 10-20% of the time with the actual PowerPoint or the physical PDF presentation as we traditionally have. And it was based on that experience that we just realized people are just naturally drawn to this much more immersive experience. Maybe as an industry, we've just been presenting information inadequately and we haven't realized it yet. And it was through that experience that kind of became VRIFY. And the idea at VRIFY is that we're going to completely reinvent the way that an investor looks at a company. And we do that by giving companies presentation tools that allow them to tell much more of their story than what they can fit into a 2-dimensional physical paper presentation. And at the same time, we give investors tools that they can actually, they're able to filter through and see what's real and what's not, because they're getting a much more transparent view and rendering of any individual company's value proposition.
So the companies are beneficiaries of this technology, as are investors like myself. How might the regulators be beneficiaries of this technology?
So the primary audience, even though if we look at our client base, the client base is really the companies, where that's who we provide a service to. But our primary audience is really the investor. And we're very careful as we build out our company and our business that we don't just turn into a promoter's tool, that we are very much kind of a trusted source of information by the buy side and the investor, whether it's a retail investor or a sophisticated institutional investor. So there are 2 beneficiaries of it. The people who don't benefit from our business are sort of your snake oil salesman promoters, because we're now creating a transparent presentation tool that's going to make it very difficult for them to hide behind. The regulators on the other side, kind of, if you look at all the information we do, or all the information we put into a presentation, it's all public. It's all fully disclosed in nice, big, heavy, long press releases and technical reports and so on. We just make that very visual and easy to work through. So you can imagine, like when you look at a press release for a company and there's 2 pages of drill results that are literally just numbers with coordinates and azimuth and dip and so on, that means literally nothing to 99% of the people that view it. All you look for is you scan through and look for the highest grade intersections and then try to make a call on whether or not that's adding value or that's exciting or not. Take that same drill result and put it into a 3D rendering where you can see where everything is in relation to each other. And that exciting drill result, is it 5 meters away from another one, or is it 100, 200 meters away from anything in a completely new area? That's really that level of transparency. It's just, you can imagine, be it whether you're a regulator or investor, whoever it may, a transparent market should lead to better decisions. And so far, from everything we've heard, both from regulators, investors, companies that really want to tell their stories transparently, the feedback's been phenomenal.
Steve, I think this technology has the capability of bringing in a lot of new resource investors. I don't come from a mining background. In my educational studies in college and even beyond college, I didn't take any geology classes, not even one geology class. Didn't focus on mining investment until late 2015-ish. So when I started to read these press releases and, like you said, try to make sense of a bunch of numbers in a chart, I didn't even know what it meant. But if you would have given me the VRIFY technology and I would have been able to see, okay, that was a step out hole, which means that, oh, they're potentially growing or expanding the resource, therefore there's value created. I could understand that, but there wasn't a visual to help me get there.
No, exactly. And we all have to acknowledge too that the way people digest information today is very different than it was 20, 30 years ago. So it's not only, this isn't saying that mining companies or junior miners are misrepresenting information, but I think by not having the tools to present information that is sort of in accordance with the way that we've all evolved in the age of instant gratification and social media and everything else, we're not doing ourselves any favors, because it's already quite technical information. Add the fact that this has been quite a tough bear market, so you don't have investors crawling all over each other to get in and look and invest in your space regardless. We should, as an industry, be making things as absolutely simple and easy for people to understand sort of the value of what we do. So I completely agree with you. Like, our primary audience today, just by design, happens to, for the most part, be existing mining investors. And even then, it's sort of the more sophisticated ones, in that people who really understand our sector, some with a technical background, some without. But we're very much building our tools where kind of we'll have different versions of the same presentation. So if you've got sort of 30 years of geological experience or 30 minutes of geological experience, there will be a form of a presentation that you're going to be able to understand.
When you are selling your product, because you are a for-profit business and your clients, as you mentioned, are the mining companies who incorporate this technology on their websites and in their presentations, what are some of the common objections that you receive from these mining companies for them to overcome in order to use your technology?
So a lot of it is like you're dealing with the traditional PDF presentation almost becomes, it's a bit of a safety net or a crutch. And you are asking people to change their behavior. Somebody's been using that same way for 20, 30 years, even 5 or 10 years. They're just used to it. So you are asking, when you ask someone to change your behavior, you have to make that as simple as possible. We haven't, to be really honest, like, we're growing right now by sort of 2 or 3 new clients a week. So it's happening. We haven't had a lot of difficulty getting new clients. And what happens, and to your example, when somebody sits through a presentation and they see they have a positive VRIFY experience, and then go back to the traditional 2-dimensional PDF, those individuals who are the ones giving those presentations, that is almost an extension of our sales team. So when we look at how we grow our business, it's really to empower kind of the executives and the people using our product as much as possible and become the voice of sort of the benefits of VRIFY. And then also the individuals like yourself and any investors who have a good experience, because I'm assuming you're not just investing in one company. So if you're an influential institutional investor and you have some VRIFY investments in your portfolio, and kind of they're really helping you understand sort of the value and the key messages to that company, there's nothing stopping you from telling all the non-verified clients in your portfolio this is a tool that they should be looking at. So like, to be honest, the pushback we often get is quite simple. Like, how easy to use? Is this additional work? And so on. And where we're spending a lot more of our time now is, now that we've got this tool, what are the ways that we can help you use this tool to save you time and save you money? And you mentioned earlier the ability to remotely connect multiple devices. Well, imagine you are an executive and you want to take your head of exploration on a marketing trip with you to wherever it may be, to London. You now have the ability to go there by yourself, and for individual presentations where you're meeting with a geologist, you can just have him dial in remotely from site or from your head office, walk them through, take control of the device, walk them through remotely, and then they can get back to work and you can continue on your marketing trip, and you've just saved kind of weeks of one of your executives' time and the money and so on. So that's what we're really kind of spending a lot of our time doing now, is explaining to these companies that this is not an add-on to your workload. This will kind of, when used properly, this should save you a lot of time and money and allow you to get back to running your business instead of just running around the world chasing new investors, which, whether we like it or not, is a huge component to running a business.
I think it'll make the marketing of the company more effective too. I was just told recently by a CEO that they chose not to go to a couple upcoming conferences because the money that they're going to spend, the tens of thousands of dollars, just wasn't going to be worth it. But if you take that same money and you put it into technology like this, you have a compelling presentation for your company on your website and accessible all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really, those are the two parts to our business. The first is kind of just give you a tool that makes it better to present, whether you're in person or remotely. And the second part, which is where we spend more and more of our time now, is really what are the kind of implications of using this technology on your business. And the first is save you time, save you money, and so on. But there's also, because you're now giving a digital presentation, and you can imagine if 1,000 people go through your presentation and we walk through the analytics after that, and we can see that nobody's spending any time on here and everybody is drawn to these 2 or 3 components to your presentation. What we'll do is we'll work with a company to modify the presentation. So in the future, it really kind of revolves around what people are looking at. And it's not something you can do in a PDF and kind of physical paper-driven world. So we are helping companies to make much more effective presentations that actually focus on the things that people care about.
We'll be right back after this word from our sponsor. Oren Resources is a junior exploration company with the appetite of a major, focused on finding the next globally significant discovery to create enormous potential upside for shareholders. It's one of the most aggressive exploration companies pursuing high-grade, scalable gold and copper deposits, and has a premier 7-project portfolio, including its 2 flagships, Committee Bay in the Arctic and Sombrero in Peru. With Oren's unparalleled technical team and highly experienced management with a history of success in advancing and monetizing exploration assets, Oren has been called one of the best in the junior exploration sector. Oren trades on the TSX and NYSE under the ticker AUG. To learn more, go to OrenResources.com. That's AURYN Resources.com. As someone that came from a non-mining background, as I referenced earlier in our conversation, Steve, something I thought about was when you're dealing with a certain type of deposit, whether it's a VMS or a porphyry deposit, new investors don't understand the significance of that, and the drill results only have meaning if you understand what type of deposit we're talking about. Perhaps you could add in some educational element to the deposits for where you could just click in and you could go into newbie mode. And then when the viewer goes into newbie mode, there's an overlay of porphyry deposits, or understand the key characteristics of a porphyry deposit and how this particular deposit meets that or differs from it. Had you thought about anything like that?
We have. So kind of, again, building out more of our investor user side of the platform, that's one of the key components to it, is to start kind of presenting the same information for different audiences, and which is very easy to do if it's it's a digital presentation. So one of the things that you're going to see is you'll soon see guided tours where companies can take you through, and the same way it'd be a YouTube video or someone else, they can take you through a tour, whether it's in person or if it's pre-recorded, but you'll have the ability to stop at any time and then manipulate and kind of interact with the photography and the 3D model and those other components. So think of it almost like an interactive presentation. The next layer to that is to actually just start building out educational presentations just like that, where you use various companies' models and data to create, well, let's walk you through what a narrow vein deposit looks like, because everybody in Ontario is really excited about this one project. Here's 4 or 5 other examples of what's been successful and what hasn't been in the sector. So when you go look at any one individual project, you come in with a little bit more kind of education of what you should be looking for, what you should be careful about, and so on. And I think that's where, like, I'm not a believer that we're just going to get a bump in the gold price or whatever commodity price and everyone will fly back in. Like, I think we need to back it up a little bit and create tools that educate people on why they should be investing in the sector. And I think if we do that and sort of build that foundation properly, we'll have a much more investable market and a much broader audience.
A lot of exploration companies are incorporating artificial intelligence for targeting purposes for the drill holes. Is there any synergy between what's occurring in the mining exploration sector there and the VRIFY technology?
Yeah, there definitely is. It's something that sort of we haven't spent a lot of time on yet, but as we build out sort of this, we are accumulating this massive amount of data as we kind of go through. And I've talked to a few of our client companies in the past, like, what if we started a program where we started looking at how we can process this data to, whether it's generating exploration targets or it's higher level where we're just starting to identify investment in trends based on kind of how people are interacting with this data and so on. We haven't spent a lot of time with that. We'd have to make sure all of our clients and all of these companies are comfortable with kind of data being used in that scenario. But I do think there for our business at VRIFY, where we're different than all of these other groups that are using individual data sets, is we as of today have 110 clients representing about 160 projects. We're out there accumulating essentially the largest kind of database of mining information that's ever existed in one place.
And you have something called the deal room, and Kirkland Lake Gold is using this. What's the deal room?
So the deal room, to me, I believe the deal room represents the future of VRIFY's business. So the deal room is what we've done is we partner with Kirkland Lake, and Kirkland Lake is a $2 billion to $12 billion story. It's a very exciting. I'm sure most of your listeners have followed or are aware of the Kirkland Lake story, but it's a really exciting story, and it's really on the back of the successful operations of two mines, the Macassa mine and the Fosterville mine in Australia. And Kirkland Lake uses VRIFY for all of their investor presentations, for their meetings, and so on. They fully embraced the software as a tool that they can use to speak to investors. But with sitting down with the CEO and some of their others on their team, we came up with this concept. Well, why don't we use it as a tool? As your company has grown and you start to look at other opportunities out there, why don't we use VRIFY as a screening tool, so you can assess whether you're considering strategic investments or joint ventures or any kind of investments or anytime you're looking at other projects or opportunities. Why don't you use VRIFY? Why don't we set up VRIFY as a screening tool for yourselves?
So it's online dating for mining companies?
Yeah, it's kind of simplistically, yes. You would set your filters. So same way, we kind of use the Airbnb example even more so than mining. You would say, I'm looking for a place in kind of this city for these dates with this many bedrooms with a pool and so on. And everything that we have in our database that fits your criteria, you're able to take a look at. And specifically for Kirkland Lake, what we do is they're not just looking at the standard presentations for these companies. They've set kind of a templated criteria and presentation that these companies can, or that these companies have to adhere to, and how that data should be presented. And what it allows Kirkland Lake to do is it allows them to go through and kind of look at all of these different opportunities very efficiently on a apples to apples basis. And whether you take that swipe left, say swipe right analogy to it, or kind of you go through that list and you decide what is the most attractive to us and what do we want to take the next step with. And why I say I think it's the future of our business is because that deal room is going to expand well beyond Kirkland Lake, where as we build this massive database of companies, investors will eventually be able to go through and set the criteria and the filters that they want to look at. And that includes actually being able to set the gold price for all of the cash flow models, the feasibility and pre-feasibility and PAs out there, set one gold price, one discount rate, one silver price, and be able to look at that entire spectrum of the whole industry on an apples to apples basis. And it's something that is really difficult to do because everyone's using individual data sets out there right now. And we want to create VRIFY as kind of the go-to investor tool for the entire sector.
So this is like you're going to own a platform the way Facebook does or the way Twitter does. This is essentially a platform that's going to serve this industry.
That's the objective, because when we look at sort of the Facebooks or the Twitters, like it's very illogical you'd ever go to stevejong.com to learn about me. You'd go to either my LinkedIn profile or my Facebook profile. But mining, which is a very exploration, it's a very complicated technical sector. There's 2,100 companies on the ASX and TSX that each have their own individual PowerPoint presentations and websites and their individual ways to present information. It's kind of difficult to fathom how anyone could go look at two of these potential opportunities and really have any idea what they're looking at. And to me, that's a big part of the reason we're having trouble continuing to find new investors for our sector, is because we haven't done a good job in sort of normalizing and standardizing the data set in a way that a platform has, like a Facebook or a LinkedIn or anything else. And that's what we want to become. Like, I don't think we'll ever go out and replace all the mining mineral exploration company websites out there. But I think if we do this right and we present information in a very standardized way, we do have the chance of becoming sort of that go-to source for information about any potential investment.
I've heard you say that you're trying to start a more transparent, more accountable ecosystem. This has been a pretty thorough interview, but is there anything you wanted to add regarding that?
I'm always careful when I say that, because I don't want it to make it sound like it's not a transparent, accountable sector, because it sort of gives a bad name to the sector. And my career has kind of been on the issuer side, the corporate side of the sector. And I think I'm a big believer in what it does and the value that the sector can create. But I think the tools right now don't exist, and the tools right now don't exist for a lot of companies to be as transparent as they want to be. But it also creates a community where bad actors can operate as well, because it's so vague whether or not they're just twinning historic drill holes or not being fully disclosed on sort of fully transparent with the results or so on. And that's what I think. I do believe that if we can get out there and create a transparent ecosystem, and by ecosystem I mean having both your investors and your issuers all using it, that could be very beneficial to the real players in the sector and then to new money as well.
VRIFY is a private for-profit company. Anything you can share with us about the future plans? Might an IPO be in your future someday?
We sit down every 6 months and we reassess. We've been able to source funds privately so far to fund our growth. So we are a tech company. So yes, for profit, but also definitely not turning a profit just yet. Like for us, and as we grow our business, it's not nearly as capital intensive as say like mining or mineral exploration. So we don't have that gun to our head to get public to access those capital markets. But every 6 months we sit down and say, what is the best path forward? Fortunately, myself and the co-founder, we grew up in the public market space. So that's not an intimidating route. That's not an intimidating route for us to go at all. And then the one thing I will say, just it is, if anyone wants to check out our site or anything, it is VRIFY.com. Not there's no E in it. We're still working on acquiring it. We just can't afford it just yet.
Yeah, so it's VRIFY without the E, VRIFY.com. And if they have questions, I'm sure there's a contact page there. Just write the company. If you're an investor like me and you're going to these conferences and you like what you heard Steve say here, and you check out the website and you say, you know what, this could help the industry as a whole, ask the next CEO you sit down with, when do you plan on incorporating the VRIFY technology? Well, Steve, I appreciate your time today. This has been very insightful. Thank you for joining me on Mining Stock Education.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Trilogy Metals is a world-class developer in Alaska's Ambler mining district. The company already possesses 8 billion pounds of high-grade copper, 3 billion pounds of zinc, over 1 million gold equivalent ounces, and over 77 million pounds of cobalt. Trilogy's Arctic project boasts an after-tax net present value of $1.4 billion with a 33% internal rate of return. Trilogy is led by an experienced management team with proven success in discovering and developing projects in Alaska. The company is well capitalized, has no debt, and possesses strong institutional support. Trilogy trades in New York and Toronto under the ticker TMQ. To learn more, go to trilogymetals.com. That's trilogymetals.com. Thank you for listening to this Mining Stock Education podcast. Please subscribe and share with like-minded investors. Visit us on the web at MiningStockEducation.com for more resources on precious metals and natural resource investing. At our website, you can also sign up for our free newsletter for interview transcripts, stock picks, and more.